really good special guest today, and we're gonna dig into your own self worth, into your own personal leadership. But before we get into our topic and before we get into our guest host today, we want to introduce our co-host today. I am Mr. William O. Bertice H. That's my dad. Yeah, it's on my mind. Mr. William O. Bertice. I'm your man with the cash. If you're looking for money, I'm your guy. And to the left of me, we have Mr. Clinton James.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm Mr. Clinton James, your local real estate broker here in San Diego. Often imitated, never duplicated. If you need any real estate advice, looking for a home, investors, buyers, you can reach me at 619-384-9269.
And what's going on, y'all? It's CEO Mike, the Money Guy, CEO of Decade Financial Solutions. If your credit score starts with a 4, 5, or 6, we need to talk. So you guys know where to find me, 858-333-5536.
Okay, cool. So now I want to go into who our guest is today because this man has been a special mentor to me. One of the wisest people I know, and he's always trying to gain information each and every single day. And I can introduce him, but I know he could do a better job talking about himself than I can. But I want to introduce everybody to our guest host today, Mr. Gennaro Crenshaw. How you doing today, Gennaro?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
doing well. I'm
Welcome,
doing well.
welcome.
William,
on?
thanks for having me on the show. I just want to say right away that I'm glad anytime I get an opportunity to be on anything that starts with G-O-D.
Come
and it says
on.
God One Radio, so
Come
I
on.
know I'm in the right place.
That's right.
And so I'll start by introducing myself by saying that I'm the son of God, son of a pastor, brother of a pastor. And I just want to share that William was right. One of the things that I pride myself on is always wanted to learn, improve myself one step at a time, one day at a time, over and over and again. So that's kind of what I'm always on. I'm on this long journey on the destination of self-improvement day after day. And so I was going to share some of the things that I've come across over the time on my personal development journey to get to where I am today.
Love that.
And,
Yes.
and you've had a unique journey from childhood all the way up to where you're at now. And, I know we probably can't get into all today, but, tell our listeners a little bit about how you got to where you're at today and becoming a motivational speaker, business consultant. Let listeners know, like, what got you into that business?
Okay, so what got me into that business is I'll start from like the early days and work my way up to kind of to today. I was fortunate growing up that I was always around education and excellence from a very young age. My father has a PhD, law degree, and things like that, and also becoming a pastor. And in my neighborhood, I was fortunate to also grow up around excellence from the early stages too, because I'm happen to grow up on Winston Drive, which I think is the most prolific drive in San Diego, California. I thought I'd throw that in there, but I grew up on Winston Drive, and it's just
Where's that at?
Winston Drive is in southeastern San Diego.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
In Southeast, baby.
Yeah,
Shout out
the
Southeast.
southeastern San Diego. And there's a person that grew up on Winston Drive that everybody may know, most people may know, Marcus Allen.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
growing up there, I was able to start to see excellence in a different way, up close and personal, than going on to play for Valencia Park Pop Warner, and things like that. So I was able to see excellence. And just so you know, Marcus Allen was a Heisman Trophy winner, NFL Rookie of the Year, Hall of Famer, NFL Player of the Year, all that. So I was around excellence in that kind of situation. Then again, like I said, through my parents, my father with the education and all that, and then just growing up around that, I was always fortunate to look for excellence. And then I was playing sports, and I just moved more to how I ended up being where I am today. So I was playing sports for many, many years, was doing well. Like I talked about, Bleacher Park, Pop Warner, we didn't lose but one game, 5 years.
Oh,
I was there.
wow.
But that's another story. But anyways, when I was 13 years old, I fell backwards and I shattered my wrist. And so when I shattered my wrist, obviously I wasn't going to be able to play football, but my father wanted me to have another activity to get involved in. And I got involved in something, I don't even know if it still exists today. I got involved in junior achievement. You know what junior
Yeah,
achievement?
It's
yeah,
still
I did
around.
that. Yes, I did
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
What now?
Yeah.
Enlighten our listeners and enlighten me too. What's Junior Achievement?
So Junior Achievement is an organization that helps young entrepreneurs become young entrepreneurs. So prior to this, and I was age 13. So prior to this, I never knew what entrepreneur was about because my father worked at a shipyard, and all my other family members, they either work for the city or they work for SDG&E or stuff like that. So they
Yeah,
were all
traditional work, yeah.
traditional
Yeah.
workers. They were all workers. So when we got into Junior Achievement, once I tell you the little story about Junior Achievement, it'll just blow you away. So they what Junior Achievement is, they bring executives in from different organizations, and they come in with the goal of helping create young entrepreneurs. So
Yeah.
they usually bring in entrepreneur type of people, right? So imagine this product and imagine this how this developing. You can see how Junior Achievement just changed the trajectory of my whole
Yeah.
thing. So what we did was they put us in groups because we had different leaders, and every group had to create a product, and then also not only create a product, but then we're competing against each other to
Right.
see
Yeah.
who
Right.
can generate the most revenue within this little period of time, right? So our group went and we created clocks. Now I know that don't sound sexy, but when you hear it, it's gonna really sound sexy. So what we did was we created clocks out of tile. So I'm 56 years old, so that
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you an understanding. I grew up in the so this is in the 70s.
Yeah.
So in the 70s is all kinds of construction going on
Yeah.
in San Diego. So this construction site, everywhere you look, and everywhere you look, they're putting tiles down in these buildings, right?
Mm.
So, but this is what they did. Every time you have a place that's doing tiles, they always have leftover tiles.
Okay.
So
Right.
our leader told us we're gonna make clocks, and what we're gonna do is, since you guys are kids, other people are going out selling candy in trucks. We were going out talking to construction workers. Hey, can we get your leftover tiles that you don't want? Obviously, they always said yes. You know, our booming faces, whatever.
Yeah.
So they would say yes. So we got these tiles, and then what we did was take and just polish those tiles up with some lacquer and all that. Polish, put some, and we didn't even put frames around the base models. We had a base model and we had a premium model. I'll get back to that. So in our base model, all it was we shined up the tiles really bright with some basic shellac,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
drilled a hole in it, and we had these little clock mechanisms. It cost like 45 cents. You put the clock mechanism in, and it come with the hands and everything.
Right.
Drill a hole, put the clock mechanism, with the little 1A battery in there, and we went door to door selling those things. They sold like clockbusters, and from that
Tile
point on,
clockbusters. I like
hey,
that.
I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to sell stuff, and I've been selling stuff ever since. So that
Yeah.
was my introduction to entrepreneurism.
that's
then,
awesome.
And that
Yeah.
happened on a humbug, but
And-
broke wrist
and
to,
exactly, you know what?
Yeah.
It happened on a
to
humbug
clockbusters.
to Clockbuster. So now, because you said it happened on a humbug, I'm going to give you something. One of my personal development advices that I didn't
Yeah.
have then that I have now.
Yeah.
That's an example of. So over time, we'll talk about, and I'll share some more if you guys would like to hear it. But I've had different adversities.
Yeah.
So I've always had situations where breaking my wrist, like dang, and I would be upset, like frustrated.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to Junior Achievement.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was.
So when you say junior achievement, because I did do junior achievement also.
Okay.
So when you say that, you give away your age because that's like 90s, right?
Right.
Because you went to high school in
We
90s.
already said he's 56.
Yeah.
He's proud.
Hey,
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 you
there
don't
you
look
go.
56, you know.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right. So when so this is what I have now that I didn't
Yeah.
have then, but I'm gonna show you how it happened in other areas of my life as well.
Yeah.
So I do the junior achievement thing. Or I break my wrist,
Yeah.
gets me into junior achievement. But when I break my wrist, I'm frustrated. I didn't want to do junior achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Other things happen in my life. I'm frustrated, but this is what I learned, and this is what goes with junior achievement. I learned now, whenever I have something that happens to me that's frustrating, I always ask myself, what could be good about this?
Mm.
Mm.
And I guess my father already knew that kind of thing. So what could be good about this? This gives you the opportunity to learn to go to junior achievement, because I never would have went to junior achievement if I got practice to go to.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So I started looking back over my life, and I'll talk to you about how I got a chance to look over my life. But now I got this one thing. When anything bad happens to you, the first thing I always ask myself, or when I perceive something that's bad, I always ask myself, what could be good about this? And Junior Achievement was the first one that really
That was a
Yeah.
that was a start. That was
the start.
I love that.
What could be good about this?
Well, it sounds like your dad understood leadership.
He did.
And today's topic and discussion is on personal leadership, something that's dear to your heart. And so, when it comes to personal leadership, tell me, what is it that you want people to understand and know about it? Do you see enough people with it? Do enough people not understand what it is? Does everyone have the capability of being their own personal leader? What is it about personal leadership that you want our listeners to know?
I want the listeners to know first and foremost that you were born to be a leader. Everyone is a leader.
Mm.
Oftentimes, we get in situations, and I'm guilty of it as well, as we look to somebody else to lead us. However, we often overlook that we need to lead ourselves first.
Mm.
And as we lead ourselves first, we get an opportunity to move up to be around other people who are leaders as well. But unless we lead ourselves first, nothing else anyone can actually lead you to is actually going to really help you until you start to lead yourself first. So you might be wondering what I mean by leadership. What I mean by leadership, and then I'm going to use, because I keep on looking at this sign, I love it, this God, the symbol of God. It's clear that if you read the word, one of the core things that God always talked about, and it's in all kinds of ways throughout the Bible, is if you don't have a vision, you'll perish. So when I'm talking about leadership, first and foremost, you got to clarify a vision of where you want to go.
Mm.
And so when you start to clarify a vision of where you go, that's the first step you can start to move towards any kind of leadership, because without that clarity, you're not leading, you just moving.
Yeah, I love that. I have a same kind of philosophy. I just use a different word for what you're describing as vision. Mine is purpose.
Okay,
You
yeah.
have to start off with your purpose. Everything that we do revolves around purpose, or as you're saying, revolves around vision.
Right.
Without it, and even when we talked about it for this year, 2020,
2020 vision. Yeah.
you know, it was about vision. You know, even vision for the show, vision for our businesses, vision for the city. I mean,
Yeah.
so I love what you're talking. I love that.
Yeah, because one of the things that how I met you, and we've had talks on the phone. We kind of network with the same people, and we've kind of come into contact with each other in the same circles. But when I met you, you were in a leadership program
Mm-hmm.
called Toastmasters, right? And that's how I got introduced to you in the beginning, and that was a couple of years ago. So, so one of the things that I would say is that, and you might want to touch on that too, if you can, is that Toastmasters has two components to it. One is leadership, one is communication, and I can't tell you how much that has been effective in my life. You know, being new to this country, coming from another country to this country, and then learning how important leadership and then combining that with communication is. So I want you to touch on that a little bit, because you were like Mr. Toastmasters, man. You impressed me the first meeting I went to. So touch on that a little bit.
That's great that you mentioned that, because Toastmaster has been fundamental in my journey. And I think I introduced Will to Toastmasters as well.
Right.
But let me tell you how that's important, because Toastmasters has two components, and everybody knows about the communication or the
Right.
speaking component. I want to say this on record: the leadership component of Toastmasters is way more important than the speaking component of Toastmasters, even though most people don't know about it. So what happened was, when I joined Toastmasters long before you met me, and I only joined Toastmasters for the speaking.
Mm.
And so when I was coming along and speaking, I was moving up, because I was kind of a accomplished speaker. I've been around ministers all my life and speaking, and always ran my mouth. That's just one of the things that I did. Right. So I started to move up. I started to win contests and this and that. And then once they asked me, because you have this, you're able to attract people, and people listen to you, would you join the leadership in order to help bring up the population, the
Right.
membership? And so that's why I got into leadership. But they had a leadership act. They also have a leadership line expo too. And I did a leadership performance just prepared just for them. And they, when they had the leadership talk, everybody's talking about leadership. So it was a lineup. So I was like the fifth speaker to talk, right? So everybody was talking about leadership. And then by the time I came up, all my material was said already.
Yeah, right.
And then, but it allowed me to talk about leadership from my own perspective. So I said, I can't use the content that I came with,
Yeah.
but I can talk about leadership as I talked about stepping up to leadership, and I use my own examples of life. And so that took me to the next level because now I realize I can use my own life stories to share leadership and marry it with the ability to communicate.
Right.
And that's
right.
what made it all work out.
Love that.
Yes.
Are we, based on your opinion and what you've seen so far, are people naturally born as leaders and then somehow during life as we grow up it's kind of beaten out of us to become, I won't say beaten out of us, but kind of not so much a part of our lives as far as being a follower?
I think so. I think this is what happens. This is what I believe happens. Okay, so in the United States, I'm just going to speak for the United States system. And our system is not designed to develop leaders because it's naturally designed to develop people who follow. That's how our system is set up. Imagine when you go to school, right? When you go to school, they start to tell you to line up. But they don't tell you how to become the person in the front. So leadership is not something that's set that you are designed to go to. So only the people who reach for leadership actually become leaders. But leadership is innate because we all start out wanting to do better. And I'll give you a classic example. Any kid that you put on a couch or a kid who has the physical abilities, if they're in an environment where people are walking, they walk. The reason why they walk is because, and this is science that's shown this, the reason why they will walk faster is because they see other people walk. And they want to go from this method of movement, maybe it's crawling, whatever, but they want to go to walking because they have a vision for wanting to become a walker. I mean, and so people start out with having visions, and then over time, when they start to get these no's and don't do this and don't do that, then a lot of people lose it. And that's why you don't see a lot more people going into leadership roles. But we know that the number one leadership role, the number one leadership ability first is develop a vision for yourself. And so that's kind of what clouds that whole idea up.
I want to talk about that when we come back from the break because there's something I want to kind of unpack that a little bit because I have a little bit of a different view, but I think it's going to be a good, interesting conversation. So,
All right, cool. Well, you're listening. Let's talk about it. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about personal leadership.
Gospel brunch, two of my favorite words. Sunday is not a day of rest at the House of Blues San Diego. There is nothing like joyous gospel music to feed your soul and nothing like good old-fashioned comfort food to feed your hunger. So, bring the family, be inspired, let the music move you. Lift your spirits while you lift a toast to the new morning. Praise the Lord, pass the biscuits, wave your napkin, stomp your feet, let your soul soar. You've got to see it to believe it. For tickets, visit us at houseofblues.com/San Diego, or you can call 619-299-2583. We will see you there.
When faced with the unexpected loss of a loved one, no one can fully be prepared to know the next steps to take. The emotional toll alone is oftentimes too difficult and hard to bear. At Preferred Cremation and Burial, we're here to help and serve you. Our trusted team of professionals have one goal, and that's to provide you and your family with the very best in quality and service. We'll guide you every step of the way in making informed decisions that truly honor the memory of your loved one. Preferred Cremation and Burial is located at 6406 University Avenue in San Diego. Call our offices today at 619-584-7000 or visit our website at www.preferredcremation.org. Preferred Cremation and Burial offers excellence in service. Call us today at 619-584-7000. We're here to serve you. The Legacy Center Pavilion Theater is announcing its grand opening on Monday, March 30th with a live concert featuring the multi-dove award-winning Christian music icon, guitar aficionado Phil Keaggy.
When I get home, I will
Live in concert at the Legacy Center Pavilion Theater, located at San Diego's newest resort hotel and spa, Legacy International Center at 875 Hotel Circle South in San Diego. For tickets to see Phil Keaggy live in concert, go to www.legacysd.eventbrite.com. Tickets start at $20. For more information, call 619-782-9139. That's multi-award-winning guitarist Phil Keaggy, live in concert at the Legacy Center Pavilion on Monday, March 30th at 7:30 p.m. For more information, call 619-782-9139. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About It. I am your co-host, Mr. William Bertiz, and we are here with Mr. Janelle Crenshaw, a motivational speaker, business consultant, and if you want to help reach your goals, this is the man to talk to. Now, before we went to our commercial break, we had Michael Dunn had a question for Gennaro because we were talking about, are you born a leader or are you born a follower? Gennaro said we're all born leaders, but we're taught to become followers. So Mike had a response question to that.
All right, yeah. So, okay, first and foremost, great point. And thank you for being on the show, Gennaro. I'm really excited to have you here, and can't wait to pick your brain over the next hour with all the stuff we're talking about. My only thing is that, so I don't necessarily, while I do agree to a certain extent that we all have an innate ability within us to at least like lead ourselves, I think that there is also something that's innate about each individual who is called to, for lack of a better word, like a higher level of leadership. Like, you look at people in the Bible, like let's just say Moses or Joseph, or even like Isaiah or Nehemiah, any great man or woman. But I'm gonna specifically focus on Joseph because he's one of my favorites.
Okay.
From the time that Joseph was very young, he had an attitude that was very different than his brothers about the visions that he was receiving from God, about what they meant, and about the idea that he was destined for greatness. You could look at all kinds of great men and women in our, in the secular world, like, take the Michael Jordans, the Abby Maybachs, and all these people, right? Who there's something innate that's born within those individuals that then kind of gets expressed on a higher level because of even the environment that they're in, or even like just the dedication that they have about their specific craft. That I don't think that is innate in every single person. I actually believe that what has happened is that our society has given a negative stigma behind the notion that some people are actually meant to serve other people's dreams or serve within the capacity of somebody else's leadership. And that role is an honorable role. That is a powerful role. That is a beautiful role to have. And I think that what has happened is our society has kind of twisted that notion around and saying, oh, because you don't want to be necessarily like in the limelight, or you don't want to be that leader who's taking on the brunt of the scrutiny, that like that's a bad thing. When in fact, like it's not. Like I think that like somebody like yourself, I don't think that everybody can do what you can do. Standing in front of hundreds and thousands of people and bring a message that's like codified in a way that like resonates with I have an assistant, and we talk about it all the time. Like he loves being my assistant. Like he does not want to be like on the forefront dealing with like the clients on that massive level, or dealing with the company macroeconomic decisions that involve in the company. Like he's like, I'm terrified of doing that, but he's an amazing assistant and he's great at support work, So I think that like, and that is his role, and that's how we function. And I honor him as much as he honors me in our relationship, and I think that, so like when you say like leaders are like everyone's destined to be leaders, I don't necessarily subscribe to that 100%, but I get where you're coming from for that, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So I like the term you used earlier, so I want to
Yeah.
use that same term. I want to unpack a lot of what you said.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of points.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Go.
condense it.
Go.
because-
Hey, it's your show.
Yo,
Go.
I'm gonna go with Joseph first,
Okay.
and the idea, because I want to use Joseph first, because then it's gonna stimulate the belief that what I'm talking about is thousands of years old because
Okay.
we know Joseph. That's an old story, right?
Yeah,
Right, right,
absolutely.
Right.
So here's the point. I fundamentally believe this: God gives all of us dreams.
Okay.
Right.
God didn't just give dreams and visions to Joseph; He gave them to his brothers as well.
Yes.
Okay, this is one of the differences, though. Everyone gets dreams, but everyone doesn't believe in the dream.
Ah.
So the belief in the dream
Right.
is oftentimes the ability to believe or not is oftentimes based on the conditions that you've been around
Okay.
and the environment that you've been around. Imagine this, just taking Joseph again. Had one of his other brothers got the vision, his older brothers, because you can read Jason's the
Yeah.
youngest, his older brothers got the same vision of being a king that he got, would they have taken it? Probably so, because they thought that was the role.
Yeah.
So what happens is the God is the only deliverer of dreams. No
Yes.
one else creates dreams for people except God.
Yes.
So the difference between the leader and the people who are not necessarily seen as leaders
Yes.
Mhm.
is the belief in the dream.
So you're saying that we're all given the same equal playing field, so to speak, when it comes to God's deliverance of dreams in our lives.
Exactly.
But if it's our responsibility to take action in faith on those dreams.
Exactly.
And that's what separates.
Yeah, and our
Okay.
environment will be directly related to, oftentimes, because there's always penetration,
Right.
but our environment oftentimes has the ability to shape whether or not we will believe in the dream.
Yes.
Now, imagine somebody gets the dream like Joseph, and they go through what we don't have to go through all of it, but what he went through.
Yeah.
You got to imagine along that dream, Joseph said, "This is not what I saw." He had to say that
Yeah.
based
Right.
on what the experiences that he was having after. But because he believed in it, he eventually accomplished it. And that's the difference in leadership. So it starts with the clarity. He had a clear vision, and then he always, because even him, when he probably got in this situation,
Yeah.
he probably
Right.
said, "What could be good about this? Oh, I'm going to meet the dream." You know, I'm just going
Yeah.
You know, so
Right,
he,
right.
he probably went to the same kind of thing.
Right.
But I think what happens is our current society, and you mentioned a lot of pieces to it,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't empower us from kids to be leaders. Don't get in front. It's your turn to lead. It's
Yeah.
those little
Right.
messages that you start getting as a kid starts to over time pile up, and then people don't naturally want to be leaders because of those messages. If the messages were leadership was something that's to be aspired to all the time,
Yes.
more people would show up as leaders, because most people don't take personal responsibility, because that whole blame and all that stuff.
Yes.
Those are all the reasons why people don't want to be leaders, and they start to get those things early in life.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I agree with you. But so one of the things that I want to ask is
I like that, by the way.
where-
Thank you.
Sorry, where does purpose come in? Purpose when it comes to, because one of the things that actually impacted me was a message by Dr. Niles Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something where purposes are known, abuse is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then he unpacked it where he said, because I didn't understand that phrase. It was kind of like, okay, well, what is he talking about? Where
Mhm.
purposes are known, abuse is inevitable. But he unpacked it. And he said, if you don't know the purpose of something, abuse that means you're going to use it abnormally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you don't know the purpose of what something is, you're going to use that abnormally, what it's not really given or built or created for. Now, when we talk about vision, I believe, and this is just my opinion, that everybody interprets the same vision differently.
Wow.
Right.
That's pretty.
Okay.
So
It's pretty heavy.
yeah, so
I like
so
that.
because at the same time, when you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John,
Okay.
same journey with Jesus Christ, different interpretations, but same outcome.
Okay.
Right? So everybody's story is different because we're not made the same. So when we talk about leadership, that's where I would say, yes, everybody's born a leader, but there's different layers to leadership. I mean, the vision that someone might have as being a leader might not be the same where you could be a leader in your family. I mean, that vision could be you're going to be a great father, or you're going to be a great speaker, you're going to be a great business person, entrepreneur. So leadership comes in many different packages, I believe. So then when you say it's true, everybody has that innate ability to become a leader, but until they really figure out what their purpose is in life, I think then that triggers or ignites that leadership in them. And that's just my opinion. I don't know what your feelings
Yeah,
on that.
I agree with that 100%. But here's the rub. The rub is the people who don't become leaders don't find their purpose. I would say that most people don't know what their purpose is in life.
Absolutely.
I think the
Right.
people who are leaders, every leader that you will find that actually are leaders, they have a purpose. That's one of the differences between the leader and the non-leader is having a purpose. However, leadership is a word that we just say leadership and we're talking about it, but leadership also can be misused when you have the wrong purpose. So when I'm talking about leadership, I'm talking about leadership in a God-focused way where leadership is not that you lead so that you can have,
Right.
Yeah.
you lead so that we can have.
Right. Because there's
That-
something called servant leadership.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
the only.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
that
that's
is
Right.
only
that is the only
Yeah.
kind. Yeah, that is
Right.
it.
Yeah.
That is
Right.
the only leadership that there is.
Right.
Right.
Servant based. You are
Yeah.
a trusted servant.
Right.
That
Yeah.
is it.
Right.
A trusted steward of what
Yeah.
you've been given.
So I'll
So-
give you an example really quickly. I remember this song. I used to be into music and heavy into music and all that.
Mhm.
But I remember this phrase that I adopted from I think it's EPMD. It could be I think it's EPMD. But anyways, it was I don't like to dream about getting paid. Right. That was the phrase. And so I started using this phrase for a different phrase for myself. I started using the phrase I don't want to dream about being successful. I don't. Well, I put the word. I don't only want to dream about being successful. I want to be successful, right? So then I started studying what it takes to be successful. I made success a habit and a study, right? So I'm coming across doing my studies and this and that, and I came across a phrase, a statement by not Dan Kennedy, the guy you like to watch. Yeah, I think he's a minister. He might not be a minister, but he wears the suit. He used to have anyways,
Les Brown,
no, he's a white guy. But anyways, it's not important. But anyway,
Bob Proctor.
what he said was, when you're running a business, and I've known this to be true after I investigated more, what really keeps the cap on the business is the leadership lid. The leadership based on the leadership. But then I start looking at leadership in different ways. And the reason why that cap is because if a leader is leading for him, that's not the right reason to be leading. If you're leading for the benefit of everyone, that's when leadership works. And so I started looking at leadership from that way. So I think leadership, having a vision, is just one component. You have a vision for yourself, but then you also have a vision for everyone else. So one of the things I do in the morning, I ask myself a few questions that help me so I don't have to only dream about being successful. I ask myself first, these are my own leadership things that I do in order for me to be a better leader, is I ask myself, number one, what can I do today to be excited about today? So I'm thinking about today because I want to bring energy. I have to be excited. Excitement brings
Yes.
energy.
Mhm.
But then I also ask myself this question. I say, and I do this every morning. What do I got to, who do I need to be on my A game for today? Right?
Mhm.
Because it can't only be about me. If I'm leading, it can't just be about me.
Yeah.
Like for today, I said to myself, I write it in my journal every morning before I get my day started. I wrote in, I need to be on my A game today for Will and this program.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But I also ask myself, what do I have? How will I know if my day is successful? If I did what? If I did this or what I did, and then I do that. And the only other thing I do, last thing I do is, who can I surprise today with a friendly gift, a note card, or something to make their day? And so I lead not for myself. I lead.
I love that.
Yeah,
so-
that
love
makes
that.
a lot of sense. So basically, and just correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that leadership is based upon the outcome of all the results of you being a leader. And why I say that is because we can say that there was some great leaders based upon what the components of leadership, which is they were able to lead a huge group of people. And if you look in the Bible, you have Herod and you have Pilate, Pontius Pilate. They were great leaders, but the outcome of their leadership was the negative part of leadership.
Mhm.
So you're basically saying, okay, well, with us being a servant leader, you're looking at more of the results or how you impact people in a positive or negative way.
Exactly. Because the word leader is when you have a scenario where I know this would be a different way to look at it, but when you have a scenario where, this is what I teach when I work with organizations, where the people want to follow you, not have to follow you.
Mm.
When people want to follow you, you're a leader. Because you're in the front, doesn't mean you're the actual leader, because everybody has that potential to lead themselves. But when people say, I want to be like Mike, this is as an example,
Yeah.
but when they want to be like,
We know
or
they
you
do wanna be
inspired
like
them,
Mike, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
you know what I'm saying? That's when
That
you're a
Gatorade
leader.
commercial.
But the position doesn't make you a leader.
Yeah.
The reaction that you create in others, only other people can make you a leader.
All
You can
right.
call yourself a leader, and
Yeah.
people can put you in that spot, but that doesn't mean you're a leader.
So what can a person do to take their own personal leadership or to be more self-reliant? Not to ask someone, what do you think I should do? But more so, this is what I'm going to do, and then figure out how to get there. How can a person go from asking people what they should do to telling themselves what they're going to do and putting a plan in place?
First thing they need to do is they need to get clear on what they want. That's number one. And it's similar to vision, but you got to get clear in a lot of ways. First, you got to get clear on what you want. And I'm just talking specifically if you want to be leading yourself and then leading others. You got to get clear on what you want. That's number one. Once you get clear on what you want, you got to get clear on the feeling you want to create in others. That's one of the areas where I was able to make a big jump, because I said, what is the emotion I want to create also? What is the emotion, or what is the feeling? What do I want people to do, think, or feel differently as a result of experiencing me? So you have to determine it with clarity, what is the feeling, or what do you want to create in others? And then once you do that, then you have to determine, okay, what are the skills that you need to develop in order to create that? Because if you don't have the skills, you don't get it. I'll give you the classic example. You know why? A lot of reasons why there's a lot of African American, not necessarily African American, but there are a lot of athletes make it from a high level. Like, there's so many people that make it to the NFL. Like, I got 3 people on my own block that played in the NFL. But you know what? I know why it was so much easier versus how many people from my block were lawyers or whatever. It's because they know what they want. They profess what they want, they work towards it, but then they also know what skills they need to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, we don't look at the skills we need to develop, and there's 2 ways we need to look at our skills. We need to look at the skills we need to develop today, and then we all got to pay attention to what's going on, and what are the skills we have to have in the future in order to be successful. And I'll just use myself as an example. I started out speaking. When I started out speaking, I realized I need to learn how to speak. I need to learn how to tell stories. I need to learn how to speak. I knew how to make metaphor. I knew how to hand gestures and all this, right? And so then I started to get into a circle where I'm around a lot of other speakers, right? And the reason why I was able to separate myself is because a lot of speakers knew how to speak. Then remember the next part of it, then they needed to figure out what kind of emotions. Then I learned how to do metaphors and stories. But then I needed to figure out what is the next skill that I need to do to separate me from that crowd. And so now that I knew how to speak, a lot of people knew how to too. All of us was mainly struggling. We didn't know how to market ourselves. So I went out and learned marketing. And not only, so then I started looking at marketing. I started learning how to do email marketing. But then that's another part. Remember that I told you the last part. I had to look towards the future. When I first was starting, when this is like 2010, 2012, I started thinking about the internet is booming. I learned digital marketing. So now I'm a certified digital marketer. That separated me. That's what allowed me to separate myself, and I continue to do that to this day. I'm always looking at what skills do I need once I got my vision and I know what I wanted to create as an impact and how I wanted to feel. Then I figure out what the skills I need now and what the skills I'm going to need later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how anybody can do the same thing.
We're going to talk more about this,
Bruh.
but we're going to take a real quick commercial break. Our last commercial break for today's show. But when we come back, we're going to talk to Gennaro Crenshaw more about personal leadership.
Yeah.
Gospel brunch, 2 of my favorite words. Sunday is not a day of rest at the House of Blues San Diego. There is nothing like joyous gospel music to feed your soul, and nothing like good old-fashioned comfort food to feed your hunger. So, bring the family, be inspired, let the music move you. Lift your spirits while you lift a toast to the new morning. Praise the Lord, pass the biscuits, wave your napkin, stomp your feet, let your soul soar. You've got to see it to believe it. For tickets, visit us at houseofblues.com/San Diego, or you can call 619-299-2583. We will see you there.
When faced with the unexpected loss of a loved one, no one can fully be prepared to know the next steps to take. The emotional toll alone is oftentimes too difficult and hard to bear. At Preferred Cremation and Burial, we're here to help and serve you. Our trusted team of professionals have one goal, and that's to provide you and your family with the very best in quality and service. We'll guide you every step of the way in making informed decisions that truly honor the memory of your loved one. Preferred Cremation and Burial is located at 6406 University Avenue in San Diego. Call our offices today at 619-584-7000 or visit our website at www.preferredcremation.org. Preferred Cremation and Burial offers excellence in service. Call us today at 619-584-7000. We're here to serve you. The Legacy Center Pavilion Theater is announcing its grand opening on Monday, March 30th with a live concert featuring the multi-dove award-winning Christian music icon, guitar aficionado Phil Keaggy.
When I get home, I will see all.
Live in concert at the Legacy Center Pavilion Theater, located at San Diego's newest resort hotel and spa, Legacy International Center at 875 Hotel Circle South in San Diego. For tickets to see Phil Keaggy live in concert, go to www.legacysd.eventbrite.com. Tickets start at $20. For more information, call 619-782-9139. That's multi-award-winning guitarist Phil Keaggy, live in concert at the Legacy Center Pavilion on Monday, March 30th at 7:30 p.m. For more information, call 619-782-9139. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About It. I'm your co-host, Mr. William Bertice, and we are here today with Mr. Gennaro Crenshaw. One thing I failed to say is that if you are watching this on Facebook Live, you have any questions for Gennaro, write them in the comment section, and we'll be able to answer those questions here on
No
air.
questions for y'all today. Y'all just got to listen.
But do your best. We may not have time, but we were off air. We were having a great conversation before we went off air. But one of the things that's in the news the last month and a half has been the death of Kobe Bryant. And you and I talk about Kobe Bryant in the past because we were Laker fans, and a lot of our conversations was what separated Kobe from everybody else. Because he was athletic, really athletic, but he wasn't like a freaking nature athletic. He was tall, but he wasn't like extremely tall. He was strong, but not like superhuman strength. But there was something about him that differentiated him from everybody else. So talk about Kobe Bryant and what his personal journey through personal leadership, what that meant to you, or how you view it.
Well, Kobe is a classic example of what it means to be a leader. And this is what I mean by that. Kobe was crystal clear on what he was trying to become. From the day, even before he got in the NBA, he was crystal clear that he wanted to be the best.
Right.
Crystal clear. If you asked him when he was 18, that's what he told you what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he did was not only just say he wanted to be crystal clear on that, he actually went and did the work that it takes to become crystal clear. So one of the things I didn't also talk about, but it goes with the conversation that I was having around skills. Whenever you want to do something and you want to be the best at it, a lot of people overlook this next idea. Kobe didn't have it. He didn't overskip this. You always have to learn the fundamentals. If you ever talk to anyone, they talk about when Kobe did his the workouts. Kobe wasn't projected to be a high round pick, but then Jerry West, he was talking about it recently because he just passed, but he talked about when he saw Kobe's workout to be to see who was going to pick, he'd never seen nobody with the fundamentals at 18 that Kobe had. So and then Kobe kept working on his fundamentals even all the way through his career. So it's because he knew who he wanted to be, then he worked on his skills. But I always also liked, if you saw the tribute to that they talked about, Kobe, even though you don't notice it, but he always was looking about how he can bring other people up. But what happened with his teammates, they didn't understand it, that he's pushing them so he can help them bring themselves up because he understood the other principle. Whenever you do your best at anything, whenever you do your best, the worst thing that can happen is this. You're going to get better. That's the worst thing that can happen. If you do your best at whatever you're working at, the worst thing that can happen is you get better. Kobe understood that. So when Kobe was doing everything, this is another key thing. He always was focused. A lot of people don't like to be focused, but they put the blinders on the horses for a reason so that they can stay super focused. And you focus, and then you detach, and then you focus again.
That's
then
right.
you detach, and then you focus again, and then you detach. And that's and I'll give you another person that talks about that too is Jerry Rice talks about the same thing. You have to be able to focus, but then you have to be able to detach and re-energize. And Kobe understood that, but then when he went into, after he got out of basketball, reason why everything he tries works or he does well is because then he focused on storytelling. He started saying, I'm going to focus on storytelling. Well, that's how he started to write those kids' books, because he focused on it. And what he doesn't tell you, he went to Michael Haig, which was one of the storytellers, one of the key top story, and he learned from him about storytelling. So he got the fundamentals.
Right.
And he learned it, but he knows what he wants to do, and then he does it. Then he wanted to be a basketball dad, girl dad, basketball dad, whatever, and then he focuses on it. And then a lot of people don't notice about him, but he always really stayed focused on God. He also always, put God in the situation. Even when he was younger, when he had that situation with the girl in Colorado, he still always was still talking about God. And so when you put God, then you start to focus and know what you want, and then get the skills and fundamentals, you're going to be successful. And that's what I take from Kobe.
Nice.
I think, I think that is so imperative. I had a mentor who told me once, when we were talking about vision, and he was like, and my dad says this all the time. Him and I was just having this discussion the other day. He's like, Pooh, he's like, what's the most important thing that you have to do first when you want to start on a huge endeavor? And I start like, we write a plan, do this and that. He's like, no, ask God, talk to God about it. And it's so simple, but in truth, it is really one of the most powerful, most overlooked steps that we do. Is that, like, so often we're having these great conversations about purpose and understanding this, and then like this systematic process that you've created to like get to a point where you understand what you're doing.
Right.
But how do you even know if that's what you're supposed to be doing, right?
Right.
Like, because if you haven't consulted, and I know that everybody who listens to the show doesn't subscribe to God.
Right.
I understand that.
That's some nuggets.
Yeah.
Right there, you're
Yeah.
sharing. Go,
Yeah,
Speak, man, speak.
But the reason why, I think each and every one of us have seen success in our prospective spaces is I think that at some point in our walk, we consulted a higher authority about whether or not this is what I was supposed to be doing. Because if that's the case, then there's nothing that's going to be held. There's no obstacle that you cannot overcome, and then you have the fortitude to look at the circumstances and say, well, what's good? What's supposed to be the good thing out of this? Because you already know the fundamental question of purpose and whether or not you're supposed to be doing this has already been answered. So in a lot of ways, in your mind, mentally, you've already said the battle is already won. Now we're just waiting to see how we're going to achieve victory. And I'm excited to be a part of the process because I'm not in control. I'm actually not in the driver's seat, right? So, and I think that a lot of people don't do that. Again, like I said, I can't speak for you guys, but for my life, what has worked is me putting God first. I can't speak for all of you, but that's me.
That's simple and lethal.
Yeah.
That's real simple and lethal. And why I want to piggyback off of what you're saying, and I want to continue on from that message by Dr. Niles Monroe called Purpose. And if you'll have an opportunity, go back and listen to that. He started off by saying, where purposes are known, abuse is inevitable. Then he said, he broke it down in 3 points. He said, the second point is, if you want to know the purpose of something, go ask the maker of that thing. Real simple, right? So if we believe in creation, as you were saying,
Yes.
we got to revert back to our creator. What is our purpose? Ask that fundamental, simple question is ask God first. You know, what's the purpose for this? What's the purpose of this situation in my life right now? You know?
That's beautiful. Because I mentioned the idea that it goes right with this. I mentioned the idea that whenever I get in a circumstance that I perceive as negative,
Mm-hmm.
because God doesn't put me in a negative position.
Right.
Exactly.
But when I have a position that I think is negative, I didn't clarify who I'm asking the question to. So when I say, what can be good about this, I'm asking God.
Amen.
I'm asking God, what can be good about this? Knowing that it's something good in there so he can tell me.
Yes.
So he can help me
Yes.
to unwrap it. So I'm saying, God, what can be good about this? So that it's not a negative question, because it could be, what could be good about? No, it's not that. It's an exciting question. You
Right.
put me here. What can be good about this? I'm waiting for you to share with me what can be good about this. And so that's another critical component. But oftentimes people ask the wrong questions, and so they get the answers to the questions that they ask. And when you ask better questions, you get better answers,
Mm.
Right.
and that also moves you forward.
Or to ask the wrong people.
Or they ask the wrong people.
Right. Because one of the things that it's crazy for me when somebody wants to know their purpose, they go ask someone else. You know, what's my purpose? You know, because at the end of the day, that person might not even understand their own purpose.
You know, one of the
I'm
things
still
I
trying to figure it
heard
out.
from Charlie Tremendous Jones,
Mhm.
he said, "Don't ask for advice, ask for counsel."
Right.
And he said, "In asking for advice, you're asking people, what should I do?
Mhm.
You should already know what you should do. Just ask for counsel on for people who know to do what they do
Right.
and figure out how do I do this best." Kind of like you were talking about with Kobe.
Mhm.
Because one of the things I think you're going to hit on, and you were kind of close, and you mentioned the storyteller was Michael Jordan in the speech at the memorial said, "This dude bugged me." Like he called me 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. He said it was a nuisance. And one thing that stuck to my mind was, I wonder how many people in the NBA has reached out to Michael Jordan. I bet you tons. But who probably have the fortitude to just keep bugging him?
Right.
Right.
Like,
Right.
what about this? What about that? And eventually he said it was like a brotherhood. He was like, okay, I love this guy.
Yeah, you got to be
That's
inquisitive. You
respect.
got to be curious also. You got to always have curiosity. Curiosity is also a leadership trait. And another trait that I didn't get to, but I think it's important, because the trait that Kobe had that allowed him to continuously call Mike is he had the courage to do so. A lot of people won't call Mike because they don't have the courage to
Yeah.
call Mike. And when I talk about courage, courage is a habit also. So one of the things I also ask myself every morning, I got 10 questions. I should share them, but I don't want to really just.
That's inside.
overwhelm
That's
you.
inside track. That's the inside track.
But I
There.
got 10 questions that I ask myself every morning,
Yeah.
because those questions lead me in the right direction.
Okay.
But one question I'll ask myself every morning also is, what can I do today that might be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's moved me more down my path?
Well, how does one know to ask the right questions? How do you know to ask the right questions?
Because you know when you don't know, and you only know when you don't know is when you have a curious mind. But you also know when you don't know is when you have a vision. You know, it's more for you to know that you don't know when you have a vision.
I also think when you're talking about that, this is where you get into the importance of mentorship. I mean, you look at every parallel, every individual in the Bible. In some way, shape, or form, they had mentors surrounded. Whether and I always believe in the rule of three, right? You have one that's above you, and then you have one that you're pulling up, and you have one that's right there. That's like what you consider your peer, right? Because there's no, I mean, even in our own field of vision, we have blind spots. You know what I'm saying? And like the whole point of having mentorship is not only to somebody who's gone where you're trying to go, but also that most important fact that you're talking about, like, well, how do I know, what to ask the right questions? It's because I have a mentor who's able to point out the blind spots. Like when I talk a lot about Dr. Hutchinson, right? Dr. Hutchinson was the first millionaire that I ever got close to. And I did not understand what it meant for your lifestyle to be synonymous with what you do for a living, and how both of those things come together and they generate insurmountable amounts of what we would call wealth, right? That was the first time that I ever saw that up close. And once I saw that, it inspired me to see, like, wow, when you get to a certain level with God and you get to a certain level of success, whether that's monetary or however you want to describe it, your lifestyle is actually what's generating this insurmountable amount of energy, which then translates to, like, you know, and he didn't tell us that. He just modeled that, right? So, like, that's something that, like, is really important. Like, he's a voracious reader, right? He's up all hours of the night. He has mentors himself. Like, all these different things that he did that he never had to say to us, he just did them. And it starts to reinstill these new habits that then create success, you know, in our lives, right? So,
I want to share something similar to that goes
Yeah.
with this, because I feel like I want to share a simple insight thing.
We got 3 minutes.
Okay, this is really quickly. I talked about how I was always around success in my whole life, right? But one of the things, it was in my home. So one of the things my father did that was unique that I haven't seen anywhere else was in our hallway. He would put up the graduation pictures.
yeah.
From going way back, right? So when it was just only elementary school, then it would be that. But as we went up, they would only hallways, pictures in the hallways with the graduation pictures, right? So now I got younger daughters, and when they was coming up, I asked my oldest daughter, who's a lawyer right now, but I was asking her about why she was so into school, and guess what she said? She said she wanted to she was so into school because she wanted to get her picture in that hallway. So she wanted to be in that Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it was that kind of thing. And then I always remember too, when I was young, I would wake up 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom. My father would be up reading because he had to work in order to work himself through law school and all that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like I got that idea of wanting to read all the time and always being curious, because of that. So it's this environment and the people you see and around you,
Yeah.
that helps you.
So,
Awesome.
so how can our listeners reach out to you? There's many different things that you do, but if someone wants to, you know, increase their personal leadership, or they need business consulting, or maybe, you know, they have a crowd that you can do public speaking opportunity for, how can our listeners reach you?
Okay, so I'm going to give you the first and the easiest way to reach me if you want to do any of those things, because I have 3 different ways to do it, but one phone number covers all. So I'll
Okay.
do the phone number thing first. The phone number is area code 619-796-2565. I'll tell you what those cover. Those cover, if you're interested in how to communicate better with the spoken word, and writing is written as well. The company that I have is Speak to Be Remembered. I also help entrepreneurs get the right kinds of customers, make higher profits, and live the life that they want to live through the Crenshaw Consulting Group. And then on top of that, I have an organization called the Businessizer, where we take specific entrepreneurs and take their ideas and package those up into a business, and that's the Businessizer. So, but the best way to contact me is to do that, or g@the CrenshawConsultingGroup.com, g@thebusinessizer.com, or support@speaktobерemembered.com.
I'm gonna write the number
Awesome.
down.
Awesome.
I'm coming for you.
Well, you know, I want to thank you for coming today.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you, Gennaro.
like
Yeah.
I said, like
Way
I told
overdue.
you, when we first spoke, I said it's an hour show, but a lot of times we feel like that's not even long enough. It's like, oh, an hour show. I want to talk for an hour. Well, an hour went by, and there's so much more to say. But what's the last thing you want to say? Because we got
Yeah.
less than a minute left.
So another thing I do too, on Facebook.com/Crenshaw_Gennaro. You have to put Crenshaw_Gennaro. I share a Facebook Live like every other day or so, where I do either something about speaking, entrepreneurship, or personal leadership on a lot of Facebook Lives.
Okay, so check out Gennaro. The man has been important in my life. He's given me a lot of nuggets that I still use to this day. So it's been a pleasure hosting today's show. I want to thank our co-host, Mike. Any last words you want to say, Mike?
No, man, Gennaro, thank you so much for coming, man. You know, I definitely am going to be reaching out to you, so I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here
And
today.
how about you, Clinton?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Gennaro. It's long way overdue that you've been here. And 2020, get that vision. Call my man, Gennaro Crenshaw.
We'll see you next week. You listen to Let's Talk About It. We'll catch you then.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun.